viewers of TDN and This Week in Interview in particular. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Interview with your host and guide, Anthony Drago. We do this every Wednesday, so I want to welcome you back. And if today is the first time that you get the opportunity to join us for This Week in Interview, a warm welcome to you. And for those of you who come back every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, welcome back. I don't take your attention for granted. There are some folks who have been here every Wednesday for the last 5, 6 years, hardly ever missing an episode of This Week in Interview. So, a special shout out and thank you to you. You know yourselves, and the audience knows you because you participate as well. Those in Dominica viewing us on DigiPlay channel 59, RVR Jams, warm welcome to you as the audience of Radio SBE online radio in Toronto, in the Toronto market. They carry This Week in Interview live as well. And also on YouTube, on Instagram, on Roku, on Facebook, This Week in Interview Facebook page, TV and radio Facebook page. There's so many ways in which you can get to listen. I invite you to invite somebody to join us. Tonight, the topic that we're going to talk about is preparing for the 2025 hurricane season. And I think it's important that we have some pretty, informative discussion that we're going to have, topics that we're going to be discussing. And with this weekend interview, we always have a different bend, a different twist, a different angle. So you will be really doing your folks a disservice if you don't let them know that we are on and to let them join us. So we take a quick break to give you a chance to get some water, get some tea, get whatever your favorite beverage is on a Wednesday night. And when we come back, I'm going to be joined by my guest, geologist Lennon Matthew. Dominican, I think, highlights his presence here first, but also it is enhanced by the fact that he is a geologist. And we're going to be talking about how do we prepare? How does an island like Dominica, how do the Caribbean people prepare for the hurricane season? So we'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you remembered to share the link, let everybody know that this week in interview is live. And also, if you were looking at us on Facebook or YouTube or any one of those social media platforms, give us a like, drop us a quick hello, a quick um, hit the notification bell, subscribe as well, so you can know when TDN has these programs going on and when this weekend interview is on. Tonight, as I said, we're going to be talking about the hurricane season uh, and our readiness of um, our lives in the Caribbean for a hurricane. The report came out that we're expecting uh, a real active hurricane season with several named storms and storms above category 2. Nobody is really saying it, but they're expecting maybe we get some stronger storms. Do you feel ready? Do you feel ready for a hurricane? I remember as a little boy growing up in Castle Bruce, we get a lot of stories about hurricane. When we in the platin, which is the processing plant where we used to grind cassava and roast it to make farine, we get a lot of stories about different storms that hit Dominica and some places in 1930s. You had Janet, um, and Hurricane Janet, and you have a few that we used to hear the old folks talk about, and you had stories about people wrapping their kids in a mattress and the wind would take the mattress, and sometimes they would find the mattress up on a tree with the child still in it, or it would be blocking a track, and you would see a whole puddle of water behind it, and people used to survive the way they used to survive. The advantage we have now is that because of technology, we get enough advance warning. I remember as a little boy, um, people would look at the birds, and you see the migratory birds all flying in one direction. You see your cattle getting restless. After a while, you hear all the wildlife goes silent. Your donkeys bray a lot, and animals really getting agitated and nervous, and you get the feeling that even if the weather is bright, there is a storm approaching. And lo and behold, sometime later you would start to see the darkening skies, and you know that something is happening. Now we have a little more sure way of predicting storms, and so we should be better prepared. My guest tonight is no stranger to this weekend interview on TDN. As a matter of fact, I think of him as our household hurricane guy. Mr. Len Matthew is a geologist by training. He is a Dominican by passion, and I always like to have him because he's very knowledgeable, he's very eloquent, and he has a lot to share. So when he comes with what you say, he comes with heat, and really leaves us with a lot of thought, food for thought, things to chew on, and things that really makes a huge difference in terms of how we can look at the island, and what does the island tell us about how we should be preparing for these events. So very warm welcome back to you, Len. Welcome back, I should say, to this weekend interview. It's always a pleasure. I always look forward to our conversations. So welcome.
Hey, Drago, it's always thanks for having me back on there to share my thoughts and perspective. The only thing we're missing is, a countertop, a couple drinks, some beer or some coffee or some tea, anything to your liking. But
All of the
I, s-
above, man.
I, I see those conversations. We as part of giving back to our home, through our experiences, we learn things over a period of time. And one of my friends from home, a few years ago, I went down for my aunt's funeral, Jerome Bannis. I'm going to call his name because he grew up in Benz, one of the guys I looked up to. He's in the police force. And he said to me one time that if you have information or something and it's in your hands, it's of no use.
Hmm.
You have to actually give it out. And then it becomes valuable. But I suspect he took that quote from some guy somewhere because later on I saw on the internet it says, knowledge kept to yourself is of no value.
Right.
Information kept to yourself is of no value. It only becomes valuable when it's dispensed, it's given out, so
Hmm.
that lives can be changed, people can make a difference. I don't have the solution for anything. You don't have the solution for anything. But I think together, collectively, with in-depth conversation, with deep conversation, with critical thinking, I think together we can find solutions for common problems.
Yeah, and people conversation gets a bad rap because at work you hear people say, "Oh, it's meetings, meetings, meetings. Always a meeting is always a meeting."
Yeah,
Or you hear people say, "All Dominicans do is talk, talk, talk,
yeah,
talk, talk, and there's no action."
yeah,
Of course, talk that leads to no action, it becomes useless after a while.
yeah, yeah,
But what you're saying is taking it a step back, because everything has to begin with a thought.
yeah,
But your thought finds growth when it interacts with my thought,
yep,
and we exchange back and forth, and both of us leave the conversation or the interaction more
yep,
enlightened, hopefully.
yep, yep, yep,
Um, Even if all I do is learn from you, the fact that you had the opportunity to formulate your thoughts into a format where you could tell me
yeah,
deepens your understanding of what it is that you just taught me.
yeah,
So
yeah,
both the teacher and the student benefit from that interaction, even if
exactly,
it's a one way but conveyance of information. But
yeah,
it's even more so when there is a back and forth. And so I always look forward to that, because you come across genuinely, um, you know, putting the information you have out there, getting feedback, responding, and that's the beginning of a solution.
Yeah,
And of course, we have to get to the point where we start to do some action, and we start to implement. But you
yeah.
must
Have that
talk about it.
conversation.
You
Yeah,
have
you
to have
must have that
conversation.
conversation.
You have to
And
have
and and then I've been on your program several times, so I'm probably not going to introduce myself again. But your guest's been familiar with me, and you mentioned I'm a geologist, and yes, I'm a geologist by training and profession, and I graduated in December with my business degree with an
an
MBA.
MBA.
Got an MBA in energy management, and lo and behold, they all kind of related, right? So
Yep,
it may seem far fetched, but they are. But the reason why I'm stating that is because somebody might ask, what does a geologist have to do with the weather? Um, so in
everything.
really and truly everything, because
Everything.
as geologists, what we do is we go out there and look at rock formations. And I put it simply as the geologist telling the story of Earth. And how do we tell the story of Earth? By looking at the different structures, the processes, understanding the processes that occur now: floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, volcanoes, looking
Winds.
at them
Yeah.
in their current phase, looking at the features they create.
Mm.
So when I go look at a mountain or I look at a landform, I can see some of the same features. That tells me how many millions of years ago there had been a lava flow, there had been a hurricane, there had been a tornado, there are faults. So that is where the correlation is. And prior to me studying geology, I did geography at the Dominica State College. So some of the things that we are talking about, I did when I was 19, 18, a 17-year-old in college, talking about La Nina and El Nino and global warming. That's
Mm.
20 something years ago. And we used to see the weird part about it, Drago, is back then we'd be talking about in the future, and in the future meant 20 years. Well, no,
Now it's
no,
20 years,
no, we,
right?
we're living in the future, and some of the conversations we were having then about global warming, it's happening now. So sometimes I laugh because, as a 16, 17-year old, we were doing these things at the Dominica State College, studying geography, talking about global warming. I think what is happening now is there is more real time data. So everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a camera. For the first time, many people saw on live television the eruption of the volcano in St. Vincent. We did these things in class, we studied them, we studied the effects of them, but we get in real play. Now we have more technology that shows us, as you said earlier, forecasting for hurricanes and some of these disasters. So, we get in these things live. So it's not just the information just doesn't stay with me, everybody's seen it, but my responsibility is to bring it down from that high level, where some university professor is talking, and speaking a language that any common man, any common child can understand, not to make it too complicated or complex. Because a lot of what you see happening, especially since our topic is hurricanes tonight, a lot of what you see happening in hurricanes, if you, like I told you the last time, if you have a pressure cooker at your home and you boil in water, you are basically doing the same thing that happens in the environment with the warming of the sea, the evaporation, the hurricanes that come from Africa towards the coast. It's kind of the same scientific principle, but
Hmm.
it's on a very, very micro scale. You take that globe and you put it on a big scale, and some of the same energy sources, the heat, the convection, the what we use in day-to-day life, is what exists out there on a bigger scale and causes this hurricane.
And
So
causes, yeah, definitely.
yeah, so I think, like I said before we started the conversation, we live in the tropics, and we've had hurricanes every year. The hurricane season starts in June 1st, ends in November, and certain times of the year it frankly starts before that and ends past and goes past November.
Right.
And every year we have hurricanes in the Caribbean. We can't do it. We can't live without them. And last,
The world cannot exist as it
the
does without
world,
hurricane.
and that's why I think we have, there is so much a negative. There's a negative connotation with hurricanes because they're destructive. A natural disaster is not a natural disaster if nobody's impacted. They become natural disasters when people are impacted.
Right.
Volcanoes shape the earth, earthquakes shape the landscape. Hurricanes are necessary for heat transfer, believe it or not.
Hmm.
There are ocean cycles that deals with the difference or the heat gradients, and because of those heat gradients, you have a circulation of ocean currents. You have upwelling, downwelling that brings off nutrients into the water. Those ocean currents and those ocean temperatures have a direct correlation to the atmospheric circulation, the air masses and the circulation.
Right.
So what I have learned over the time, Drago, the world is so, that's why people say intelligently designed. The world is so amazing that everything has a correlation. The ocean currents is correlated to the air masses and the air currents. These two are co-interdependent,
Yeah.
so they affect one another. They affect the temperature. The big deal about it is we don't create nature. Nature decides how we exist. And I think what the mistake we have made a lot of times is we try to fix the problem with we try to leave or solve the solution with no hurricanes. So we imagine Dominica without hurricanes. That ain't gonna happen.
So you build your house in the sunshine,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
forget that it's going to rain
It's
next
gonna
week,
it's gonna it's gonna rain next week.
and it
So
rains next week, and you have to run and get a bucket and collect water that's fallen
collect
from the
water,
road. Because when
and
you
and
build it, it was dry.
exactly. So we the hurricanes don't live on our time. Natural disasters, natural energy, natural processes don't exist on our time. And I've come to the realization, thinking about it, I think part of our selfishness is we see the world, we see the globe from our eyes, like
Hmm.
it's all about us. Really and truly, we're not the most important factors in nature. Stuff. I hate to say it, but human beings are not the most important because the planet was there before us, and we probably will be
And most
extinct
likely you'll be there after us.
after we leave. So really and truly, the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the volcanoes decide how we live,
Right.
how we build, how what our structures are going to. Nature really determines what our structure is like. And you know how I know? Because they do that to the animals. And one of the joke I always tell people, the last hurricane that hit Dominica, we had, last the strong hurricane that hit Dominica, Maria,
Maria. Hmm.
we had 150 something miles per hour wind. Doesn't it always amaze you that where do the parrots go high? None of them gone to university. None of them study meteorology. They don't have no technology. But yet still after 150 mile per hour wind, the first thing you see come out from the bushes are the parrots.
My
Where
parrot.
do they go? I always
How
I
do they
always ask,
know to go there? You know what I
how,
mean?
how,
Yeah.
how did they know to go there? Where did they go and hide, and how did they survive? So it tells me that if these animals that don't build, well, they build structures, but they don't build the fancy structures with it. They don't live in these houses, and if they survive, it tells me that we also will be fine. And I said, wind don't kill people. What kills is the debris and the stuff that flies through the wind, the
And
destruction.
I want to stick with that a little bit because growing up, as I was saying in my introduction, growing up, we used to take cues from the animals.
Yeah, yeah,
We would know that whether something is going to happen because we when you go to change your cattle,
yeah,
it's jumpy, it's
yeah,
irritable,
yeah,
it's agitated for no
yeah,
reason.
yeah,
Your dogs are a little bit more whiny. Your chicken don't come
yeah,
out the way they used to come. Birds are
yeah,
flying in one direction.
yeah,
Nature goes quiet.
yeah, yeah,
And so what you're saying is that the animals know how to deal with the phenomena, and we used to be able to watch the animals and get our cues from them. And but somehow um, we figure that we're smarter than the animals, so we don't need to learn from them anymore. I'll give you a story about that. Growing up in Casper's, we're on the Atlantic side. The sea used to be rough. But as little boys, we always go in the sea. We take the seats of the fisherman boat and we go body surf. We go run, you say run taut, running waves. And tourists, American, and I guess maybe everybody was American first at the time. It was white people used to come as tourists on the beach. And we would tell them, you see, oh, that wave pattern over there, there's a current there, don't go there. Because as little boys, we go on the beach, we know exactly how to recognize that current. So we bathe on this side today, next week, all of us on this other side because we know where the current is. And these tourists come down and they see us as native, primitive people. What you know? Maybe they were college graduates or whatever. And they go in the current, and on many occasions, fishermen had to risk their lives and go into the water to pull them out because the same current run them about, start drawing them out into sea because they thought they were too smart to pay attention to the natives. And I guess that's what you're saying, is that the birds, the endemic birds and animals, know about hurricanes and what to do with it, and therefore we can take cues from them as to how we should mitigate the impact of a storm when there is a major hurricane. But then um, we're talking about preparedness for the hurricane season. Okay. And one of the things I don't want us to get caught up in is this thing where we live our life free for, I don't know, 7 months of the year. And then it becomes April and May, and we say, well, hurricane season is starting. We need to start to prepare. Really and truly, our preparation for hurricanes should be, it should be inbuilt in our lifestyle,
Very much
right?
so.
The way we
Very much,
build and so on.
very much so.
Let's talk about that some.
So that's why, and so in my introduction, when I talked about hurricane being there before us,
Mhm.
it is there while we're here and after we're gone. Hurricane preparedness in Dominica never really stops. I don't think
It
you
should
should.
never stop.
There is, like I said, hurricanes dictate how we exist in Dominica, where we live, our kind of structures, when we travel. You know, the weather systems determine where we plant crops, as a matter of fact. You
Hmm.
see, so our entire existence is dependent on the one natural force that is ever present. That's hurricanes. It happens in cycle, but imagine from June to November. So that's a chunk of the year.
Oh
That's the
yeah,
hurricane
fifty
season. so
percent of the
so
time.
so
Yeah,
uh, you know, it's like somebody telling me they're living in Canada or in the Arctic, and you have ice 6 7 months in the year. So for us, we don't have ice, but we have a hurricane season that lasts from June to November.
exactly.
So that means you have November, December, November to May. You don't have hurricane season. So that means most of your life you are really living within a hurricane zone. So whatever preparation in Dominic, preparation for hurricanes, I think is an ongoing. It's ever present. I hate the idea of, hey, we're preparing for hurricanes, and I think the mindset of preparation is bottling down your house, is getting enough water, checking your food supply, clearing drains, and but but we exist in a hurricane, so it's not just the short term, but you have long term preparation, and long term preparation requires government oversight. It requires good building codes, not just having them on the books, but enforcing them.
Right.
So if somebody's building a building, the people from the planning division have to go out there and say, hey, that is not according to code. We can't have that. Have inspectors going out and say your building is not according to code, because even if you build it on the hottest day of the year, at some point in that building's life is going to have hurricanes. Why is that important? That's important because what happened during Hurricane Maria? A lot of people were underinsured. They took corners. They cut corners. You cut corners. You didn't put a proper roof. You didn't follow the nailing guidelines. You didn't follow the country standard. The
Exactly.
people who are supposed to enforce it didn't. No, your roof's gone and you're underinsured. Guess what? Your roof is in tap for 2 3 years because you can't afford to pay it back. The insurance, so it's in your own benefit to make sure that if you go, as a matter of fact, Drago, where I am now, we had some storms that passed through a day or two ago, and my roof got slightly messed up and damaged. So I call the insurance. There's a deductible, but they're gonna cover it. And they've asked me if my fence is ready to be fixed. Now, when we put a new roof, I'm gonna upgrade it to more resistance because the builders build what they want. The insurance gives you a discount. Why I'm saying that is if you're in Dominica, yes, it's going to cost you some money, but if you put stuff that's what the state requires or even stronger, then that can allow you to get discounts from the insurance company. That's where policy has to come in. So there has to be a long-term preparation for hurricanes, like a continuous long-term preparation. How we build our drains. I saw some road being constructed in Dominica, and the drains are slanted and less than a foot deep, and it tells me that whoever is designing this road is not preparing for the volume of water that's going to come down the drain. What you think is going to happen? I can tell you what's going to happen over a period of time. that road is going to get overwhelmed because I know when water comes down with force, that force of water will take. We've seen what happened in Dominica. Dominica is a steep slope country. What has killed more people in Dominica is not the winds from the hurricane, it's the landslides and rivers. You go back through the records, that's what killed people in Dominica. So if you don't have proper drains and you decide you're building a road with a shallow drain that cannot hold hurricane volume, then you building for failures. You building for catastrophe. And like I tell people, accidents don't happen the moment they happen. Accidents happen way before the actual accident happens, and that is when you have bad planning. That's when you have improper construction. That's when you have poor oversight, poor government oversight. We can't have rules in planning and we don't enforce them.
And
If
you
we
don't
don't
want to
enforce them,
enforce it.
you
Yep.
it's like crying wolf. You have a rule in place. You are having that rule to create a culture. If you are not enforcing those rules, then you are creating a counterculture to what you're trying to enforce. So
Yeah.
you also create a culture by not enforcing those rules
They're not
because people
enforcing
are
the
gonna
rule.
believe I can break the rules in every way. So when we plan, we have to do the engineering, the design, the how we do our roads, how we do our drains, looking at the rivers and seeing okay the volume of the rivers at flood stage. What is the stage and volume of our rivers at flood stage? So I am not going to build bridges that are lower than the flood stage of the river. That is what has been happening. I'll tell you a perfect example of if you go, I'm giving you a real life situation in Dominica. Everybody who's driven on the West Coast Road in Dominica has passed through Makushri.
Hmm.
When you pass from Makushri, there's an old bridge. That bridge is probably 100 plus years old. The height of the bridge tells me whoever built that bridge considered the flood stage of that river at the time. So they built the bridge high enough so that if the river is at its maximum flood
It will
stage,
not touch the
that it
bridge.
will not touch that bridge. I don't know where we lost that ability. When did that happen? They build a new road, they build new bridges, and it's lower than the oldest bridge that is there. The sad part about it is the new bridge got mashed up, and we were using a bridge that's 100-year-old to cross the river.
Yeah. Rivers,
That's
yeah. No,
that
no,
is
no.
that is
Yeah.
not development. That's regression.
That's regression.
And it's not for us being incapable. I think sometimes we just don't learn. We just don't learn from mistakes. And I think the worst mistakes you can make is the ones we don't learn from. So if we were able to build a bridge 100 years ago, I don't know the age of that bridge, but I can tell it's older than the ones that were there,
Hmm.
and build that bridge high enough so that it will be above the flood stage. Why are we now building
Yeah.
bridges that
When somebody comes and they propose a design and it's lower than the one that's existing,
yeah,
there's a question. Why?
there should be a question why,
Yeah.
and there should be a question. So that's where the policy, the planning comes in place. That's the things that
That's where
need to be
governance
done.
come in place.
Governance, that's the things that need to be done year round to ensure that people are prepared for the single most important time that in our existence is hurricanes. I mean, we live, as I said, June to November. That's a significant portion of
Yeah.
the year. It's
The
not like
one
2 months.
thing that you're sure about is that
You
Dominica
sure it's going to happen?
is going to get hit by a major storm.
and
Is
and
it
and
this year? Is it next year?
it's got it's
But
gonna
it's going
happen.
to be hit by a major
I
storm.
can bet you it's gonna happen. I can bet you my life is gonna happen. But the thing
Yeah.
about it is, like I said earlier, they are called natural disasters because they affect humans. These phenomena, this energy, they are necessary for the existence of the earth. If hurricanes stop, that means the earth is dead. If the water cycle in the ocean, the ocean cycle stop, that means our planet is dead. That means you can't transfer heat from the equator to the poles. Like I said, there are two phenomena that affect hurricane season. Most folks have heard about them. They call the El Nino and the La Nina effect. And really what it is, it's the temperature changes in the Pacific Ocean. So I try to make it simple. So the El Nino is the one we've heard a whole lot about. The El Nino, what it is, the Pacific Ocean gets really hot, and you have trade winds blowing from east to west, from South America, South Central America. And in normal conditions, the trade winds pushes that warm water to Indonesia. When that warm water goes to Indonesia, it causes an upwelling of cold water around that area that has a lot of nutrients, really rich, and it's important for fish. Lo and behold, it correlates to the strength of hurricanes we have, because that warm water causes the jet streams that comes from the north to dip a little lower. So when they dip a little lower, and the jet streams move from north to northeast to towards the equator and towards the east. When these jet streams dip really low, they tend to create what they call a wind shear that causes the hurricane to stay mostly in the Atlantic, and it causes the number of hurricanes to be reduced because that wind basically dissipates
Right.
hurricanes when they impact.
Disrupts the pattern.
That, yeah, disrupt the pattern. Now, what is happening? The NOAA prediction this year is pretty dire. So what they're saying, and I took some notes. It says they're predicting between 17 and 25 named storms, and the average is normally 14. There's going to be between 8 and 13 hurricanes compared to an average of 7, and between 4 and 7 major storms compared to an average of 3. And there's what they call the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale. So it's measured on the wind scale. So a category 1, we have 74 to 95 miles per hour. That's a category 1. The category 2 is about 96 to 110 miles per hour. The major storms are from category 3 to category 5, which we experience in Dominica. Category 3 is 111 to 129 miles per hour. Then you have 120, 30 to 156 miles per hour as a category 4. And a category 5, which we experience in Maria, is 157 miles per hour higher. That's a lot of velocity.
Yeah.
They are predicting between 4 and 7 major hurricanes. So major anywhere from category 3 to category 5.
Which is above 110, which is from 111.
Which is above 110, 120, 110 to 129 miles per hour is a category 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if we are expecting those, just imagine what happened during Maria. We had Irma hit Antigua and Barbuda. We had Maria in Dominica. I mean, even if a hurricane doesn't hit Dominica this year, some other island gets hurricane, right? And what we've seen happening is not just the hurricane, but some of those systems that bring a lot of rainfall, like what happened in Erica. Mm-hmm. I mean, it did damage to Dominica. So not only we have to worry about the wind, but like I said, Dominica, because of its topography, the steepness, the mountains, which is great. We love the green on the mountains, but the problem is, you're going to have a lot of landslides.
There's rushing water and landslides and so on.
Exactly. Yeah. So here goes our advanced preparation, land management, land use, where you build buildings, your vegetation cover. You can't do that in May for June. That has to be part of your existence.
Baked into your lifestyle.
It has to be baked into your lifestyle.
Len, I have to take a break. Because we are at the bottom of the hour. Let's take a quick break. We get a word from the sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to try to tell people what to look out for, because there's a lot of homes that are being built in places where we wouldn't have had homes before. So we're going to talk to you so that you can do an assessment of where you are and therefore assess your risk, and be able to know what action you need to take to lessen your impact. So my guest tonight is Mr. Lennon Matthew, and we're talking about hurricane and hurricane impact and how we can take the impact and bounce back quickly without too much of a drastic effect on our lives. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Presented by. People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com. Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877 698 9894. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. And as usual, we're really appreciative and grateful to our sponsors, our partners. Man's Audiovisual makes my flyers, and we look good on the flyers. He can make your business look good as well. They do flyers and they do all the way up to full production. You can show up with your professional equipment and carry your event live, and also streaming. Do videos for your business place and so on. Um, there is, remember, on June 8th in New Jersey, in Irvington, New Jersey, the Dominican Diaspora Arts and Craft Expo is on. So good shout out to Maslin and the rest of the exhibitors. I know you must be busy time now preparing stuff to have on exhibition. Levi Black is going to be the guest feature performer. I think last year was Jali, and everybody said that she, you know, um, was a bang. And Levi is coming all the way from Canada to be there. But tonight we are talking about the hurricane season and what you should be doing to make sure that you are ready in case we get a major storm. And it doesn't even have to be a major storm, as my guest, Mr. Lennon Matthew, was saying, because we get a lot of damage just from the rain that accompanies those storms. So, for example, tropical storm Erica did not even rise to the level of hurricane in terms of wind speed, but it's one of the storms that made the most damage in recent time and recent memory, from rains into landslides and so on. And so um, we're doing our usual, well, it's almost June, and therefore you should be ready for a major weather event. um, Hopefully you didn't stop being prepared. If you built a house, you took that into account. How do you align your home? Did you take into account the direction of the wind when you build your house, so that wind can flow in and out without necessarily causing damage, but it will be cooling and reduce your air conditioning bill? All of those things that we used to do. Where's your light coming from? Do you have windows that brings light in? But also, what do you have facing west, so you don't get that hot um, afternoons? We had an office. I had a company that was in Dominican. Our office was on Federation Drive, and in the afternoon we almost could not stay in the building because that western facing wall used to get so hot, even with air condition on. It was unbearable. So how do we, what Len was saying in the first part of the program, was that we have to know what is going on around us, where do we exist, and therefore organize our life to take that into account. So if we're living in a place where there is snow, what do? We design our roof so that if you get 12 inches of snow, that extra weight, your roof is designed to take that weight without collapsing. Well, in Dominica, we expect hurricanes and storms and water, rushing water. And if you have loose soil, you get landslides. So when we're building, we have to be able to take that into account. So then, since we're talking about disaster preparedness, hurricane preparedness, let's run through the usual thing. Make sure you have batteries. Make sure you have a way to charge your cell phone because nowadays everybody communicates via cell phone. Make sure you have some food that will not get wet, that can be useful. Um, Expect if, for example, there's no power for a while, all your food is not on your fridge and it's going to spoil in 2 days. Those kind of regular things that you can just go online and find them. We tell people, don't ignore that. Make sure they have a little bit extra stock in the hurricane season so that when a hurricane is announced and everybody rush into the supermarket, you maybe only have to pick up a few things instead of trying to be in the rush and buy a whole bunch of groceries. So I think we can spend a minute or two talking about that because that is everywhere else.
I'm smiling, Drago. The reason why I'm smiling is because the last time we were here, we had that conversation, and I said to you, by now, everybody in Dominica should be an expert in hurricane preparedness.
Yep.
You become an expert if you're doing something over and over and over and over and over again. And as you said, we've had hurricanes in the 1920s, over 80 years of hurricane record. And due respect, I hate to come and talk about, fooling your
Have
tap,
a flashlight, have
have
some
a flashlight.
a
No, if
storage water.
have storage water. No, if I have to come on here, I don't need to go get an education to do that. If I have to come on here and to tell people at this point where we get hurricanes every year to have flashlight and have extra battery, it tells me one thing, frankly, we're not learning. I mean, I don't want to say it's not important, it's important. But the reason why I'm saying that is because we exist from June to November with hurricanes. These are things that should be already ingrained in us so much that we should not even be talking about that anymore.
Right.
I would really like to have is a different perspective of a hurricane. And I'm telling that because of what I see happen here.
Hmm.
So during the hurricane preparedness, during the hurricane season, what I notice has been happening is hurricanes, like many other things, create a need. They create a need for consumption. And I think we need to pay more attention to those things because hurricane is such an essential part of our lives and how we live. Then we need to look at storms and hurricanes differently. Because while we are sitting in the Caribbean talking about hurricanes destroying our lives, some people are making major economic decisions based on storm relief and storm response. There's actually universities that's teaching students how to do that. And I think we need to start thinking that way because we exist in an environment where hurricanes is what dictates our daily life. And as human beings with our brains, with intellectual capacity, we learn to survive first and we learn to make it a benefit instead of a hindrance. And here's why I'm telling you that. We have the Christmas season. Christmas season is 1 month of the year. And during Christmas season, they sell toys and goodies and
And rum and
rum, and the stores love Christmas because that's their biggest sales time of the year.
hmm
That's 1 month. Why don't we think of hurricane in that sense where we have June to November to have supplies for thinking of it as an economic advantage in
economic,
the
yep,
sense that
economic event. Yeah.
hurricanes create a need. And the reason why I'm saying that, and like I said earlier, what I noticed had been happening every time there's a storm, Lowe's, Home Depot, all these places get empty.
Hmm.
They make their best sales during storm and hurricane season. Why is that the case? What it tells me is when the hurricane comes, it creates this mass consumption. Somebody has to produce that material. So as much as they say, hey, we run out of this, we run out of that, somebody has to also sell it and produce it. So
Hmm.
these supermarkets and stores make a killing. I mean, we all send barrel homes. And I even in the hurricane response, if you talk about 5,000 people in the US sending barrels and sending canned goods home, we are basically building the economy of these places when we spend all this money and then we send material goods to home. I am suggesting that instead of looking at hurricane as, oh, our life is going to end, it's been there forever. How can we capitalize on that situation? It's creating a demand. So first of all, if we have a system that is well coordinated, and when I say that, what I mean is your housing is your structures are designed and built, inspected, according to the government rating or whatever rating we have.
Cool, huh?
We are aware that we have 157 mile per hour wind. I think if we tailor our design, our structures, so that we can withstand these things, then the rest of the stuff shouldn't be an issue. I'm saying that because what I have seen over the years is the storms really destroy economic growth. It destroyed, even back in the days, our bananas and so on. But at the end of the day, there had to be funds to rebuild. And that fund to rebuild can be a boost to any country's economy. And
Yep.
I'm thinking we need to focus on how do we capitalize that for the June to November, which is a longer period of time than where we capitalize on Christmas season to have sales. You see what I'm saying? If
Yeah,
you get
no,
what
no,
I'm
no. I
saying.
agree. So, for
So
example, there's something called hurricane shutters.
yeah, exactly.
Every
That's what I was
house
getting.
in
Yeah.
every house in Dominica should have hurricane shutters.
Hurricane shutters. As a matter of fact, the houses that they build here, they use hurricane shutters as a style.
As
They
a
put it on
style.
the side of your
Hmm.
window and they charge you extra for it.
Hmm.
Back in the old days, and you mentioned something earlier, and I'll give you a perfect example. Back in the old days, if you go to Portsmouth and Roseville, you see some of those old wooden structures. They were old, but they withstood hurricanes year after year.
Yep.
And nobody ever wondered why did they withstand structures, and then we have new buildings that can't. Because there was specific design that the British and the Europeans had known at the time, having this high pitch roof, having that specific design that help lift the wind over your building and not create those eddies. So the flatter roofs now create eddies, it creates lift and causes
Hmm.
your roof to rise. That's what sucks the roof out of your building.
Yep.
So if you look at this old building in Portsmouth, you're like, why is that old building by the market still standing up after the hurricane? It's because of the way it was designed.
Hmm.
So it tells me again, like I said, we knew how to do these things. Let me give you another example of why I say people don't learn. So I'm using a different disaster in time. Earthquake in Haiti. The capital of Haiti lies on a front. Over 100 and something years ago, they had an earthquake. Thousands of people died. They realized the structures they were building were the cause of the issue, because if you build concrete building around earthquake zones, and they not build properly, you're asking for trouble, right?
Right. Hmm.
So they passed a law and they said, hey, we can't build the structures in here because they tear down too easily during earthquakes. They're going to cause death. The next 50 or 100 years after the second wave of earthquake hit, there were probably 200 to 1,000 deaths, much less, because they changed their structure. Well, guess what happened in 2005? Time changed. Everybody forgot what they did before. They started putting buildings around the fall. They were concrete buildings because they were trying to account for hurricanes. So they built concrete buildings. They were destroyed by hurricanes. We're building concrete buildings, but they were not properly installed. They were not according to scope. They didn't account for earthquake. 2005, we had an earthquake in Haiti. What happened? 250,000 people died. So over 100 years ago, they found a solution. Fast forward to the day with modern technology, we had more casualties. You see what I'm saying,
Yeah.
Drago?
Hmm.
So if I come here and we talk about, and we still have to tell people about putting flashlight in your battery, cutting branch, like the most basic stuff
Basic thing. Make sure
that
your
should
butters are clear. Make sure drains
be
are
part
clear.
of our existence. That is what I'm talking about. That is the mindset. And I'm not going to encourage people to be still doing that stuff.
Mm.
It's important. But at this point, every single child from the time you're in preschool to high school should be an expert in horror, in my own
No, yeah,
opinion.
I agree. I agree.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So let's look beyond that. Let's look beyond, okay, we've got that done. What else can we do, considering knowing that hurricane really creates a need for goods and services? That's what it does. It creates a need for good architectural design. It creates a need for new material. It creates a need for how we use our land. It creates a need for
Soil
other
protection,
soil protection,
water
soil
control.
management.
Yeah.
What exactly? It creates a need for those things. Then what you do is you design an economy that's going to capitalize from at least June to November instead of just December. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have to have that mindset. Now, the other aspect of that I think that's important is not just a localized approach to it. It has to be a regional approach. It has to be an approach where the other Caribbean islands. As far as I'm concerned, the hurricane response, if Dominica alone is doing it, doesn't make much sense, because you need the other islands for that thing to work. And why I say that is, okay, here it is. There is a problem with sending relief to the islands. People send old shoes, old clothes, or kangaroos, and all kind of stuff. But when Maria hit Dominica, St. Lucia was all right. Grenada was all right. Barbados was all right. Trinidad was all right. I am saying it's about time there's a regional approach to hurricane relief in the Caribbean. So instead of people in the North America and elsewhere sending barrels and stuff, send cash. They can shop in Trinidad, they can shop in other islands, they can do that. That way, that encourages circulation of currency within the
in the
region,
region. Yeah.
because I am telling you, there millions and millions of dollars is spent in the US buying stuff and sending to the Caribbean. And you creating a need up there, somebody's got to pay for it. And then we're staying in the islands year after year. We're not capitalizing on this potential economic input into the country, because it, as I'm telling you, it creates a need. And
Yeah.
and then if you have a proper insurance, you have insurance benefits go through your houses, the construction and all that stuff stays there. So if we're talking about resilience and sustainability, Drago, that is the mindset we need to have. Because if you keep begging, then that's not sustainable. If you
So
keep begging, that's not resilient.
yeah. So let me give you an example of what you were talking about. When I was in Dominica, I used to work for Colgate Palmolive, and
Yeah,
we built a new toothpaste plant in Belfast.
yeah,
Colgate Palmolive Insurance
yeah,
is an American company. They sent somebody all the way from the US to Dominica to inspect
yeah,
the building that we did and
yeah.
to inspect the processes before they would agree to insure it.
But that's what they do. I
Yeah.
mean, here's
No, no.
what the
So where I was going with that is, after Hurricane Maria, a lot of insurances were caught off guard because of the amount of claims, and the amount of claims resulted from buildings that were substandard. So
exactly.
if the government is not stepping up and making sure that the buildings are built properly,
Yep,
the insurance company should have trained inspectors that
yep,
can go out and inspect and say, unless this qualified person certifies that this building is built according to code, it's
yep.
not insurable.
Yep. But and so you get in the territory where I'm talking about. Case for example, in Florida, they've been hit with hurricanes. From Andrew was one of the earliest one that
Mhm.
destroyed Florida. Billions of dollars in damage. Because of the frequency of hurricanes for the last 10, 20 years, insurance premiums in Florida is so expensive that insurance is more expensive than some people's mortgage. So people can't afford to buy homes down there because the insurance is too expensive. And the reason, because over the years, hurricane have destroyed a lot of property and insurance have to pay out. Now, imagine doing that for 1 year and multiply that by 3, 4, 5 years. Because why? Their buildings were not built to withstand hurricanes, frankly
Mhm.
speaking.
Mhm.
They're doing it now. So insurance is not designed for 100% destruction. Insurance is designed for a few people losing their homes
Yeah,
because
because you're supposed to spread the risk and all
spread the
that.
risk.
Yeah. Mhm.
So as much as Maria might be an anomaly, but it might be the new norm. So going forward, if you don't if you don't have a concerted effort, a national effort to make sure that the building codes are up to standard and ensure that people follow those codes, then what you're going to have happening is you can't afford insurance. Then every time your home damaged, to you, the people living in Dominica, then you can afford to buy a home and build a home. So it's
Exactly.
it's it's your own
So,
detriment.
so again, when you talk about having a hurricane economy, a hurricane mindset
Yeah.
built this economy, I mean, a simple thing would be you will have inspectors
Yep.
that provide the service,
Yep.
and therefore, when somebody is building a home,
Yep.
that inspector is hired to come and do inspection. An
Yep.
inspection might cost $200,
Yep.
and so by the time you finish your home, maybe you had 4 or 5 inspections,
Yep.
maybe $1,000.
Yep.
But the insurance company now is looking for that certificate from that qualified person to say, okay, I inspected that home. I inspected the foundation, I
Yep.
inspected the framing on the walls, and so you have a certificate,
Yep.
and yet you can take to your insurance that says, listen, this home was Anthony Drago, engineer, certified that this home was built according to code, and
Yep.
without that certificate, your home is non-insurable. So if
Yep.
government is not willing to, or doesn't have the manpower to go out and inspect every construction project,
Yeah.
here is
Hire
an
hire third
opportunity
party.
for
Yeah.
here's an opportunity to a third party to offer that service,
Yeah,
and insurances take advantage of it,
yeah,
and in the long run, the whole country benefits
yeah.
because now insurance becomes cheaper.
Exactly, and that's the point. That's the kind of conversation we need to have. You understand? Because that has more impact on people's life than full in a container of water.
Yeah,
Seriously, because I,
seriously. Oh,
because at the end of the day, you said it's non-insurable. They might tell you I'm insuring it, but at a premium that you can't
exactly,
afford.
exactly.
You see? So if more people do those things, then that brings down the insurance rate because the insurance know I can insure this guy house. I don't have to charge him 3 times the house to make my money. I can charge him a lower premium. Insurance rates drop because you have structures that can withstand 150 miles per hour.
Right.
Now, guess what we can do, Drago? We have and that's why I said we have to have a different dispensation. We have the University of the West Indies, where the brightest among us go. The brightest people in the Caribbean go to UE. That's our university. Why isn't UE the top university for meteorology and hurricane
And
studies in the
hurricanes,
world?
right? Why? I marvel at that all the time. Why isn't the Caribbean is central for marine studies?
I, I don't
We're all surrounded by the
I
ocean.
don't I don't understand. So and then we say we're incapable, but we have institutions, we have the natural resources that we can use around us, and we're not educating to maximize the benefits out of those natural resources.
You
We
know,
should have.
in 1990, I one of my first projects I did was at the Cab Ritz in Portsmouth and then
Yeah,
in Deepwater Harbor. And the government was going to send me to study maritime engineering.
yeah.
You know where I had to go to do that? In Oslo, Sweden.
Sweden, yeah, somewhere up there. I was going to tell you
Yeah,
somewhere in Europe.
yeah, in Oslo.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and even up till now, like this is a conversation that we're having, Len,
yeah,
is
yeah.
look at where we are and look at what we have to deal with and how can we turn it into an advantage
An advantage, but
versus
that's
the
the point.
liability.
So California, and I'm using other areas because they build around disasters. California is a tectonically active state. That
Hmm.
means it's on an earthquake zone.
Yeah, high
California
seismic
is
activity.
a high seismic activity. California is built on that stuff. But because California is built on that stuff, every building that's built in the last 100, well, at least 70 years has to have earthquakes on its mind. I mean, their roads, their bridges, their schools. They had one in 81 right after, I can't remember exactly, Loma Prieta earthquake. And these things happen. So it would be stupid of them to build such high-rise buildings, all this stuff, and not factor in the fact that they live in an earthquake
Exactly.
zone.
Right. Hmm.
So here's the deal. I guarantee if you go to all the universities in California, they have a department. They have one of the best seismology department. They have some of the best geoengineers coming out from there. Because guess what? They educate for what is around them. They can
Yeah.
live through there.
Right.
They export that technology. So when we talk about export, it's not just in some goods and services, but intellectual export.
Intellectual export.
So here it is. We are in the belt of the hurricane. We have the University of the West Indies, one in Antigua, Barbados, Cape Verde, and in Trinidad. And then we have Mona campus in Jamaica. We should have the best meteorologists, weather scientists, hurricane specialists coming from this place. Then we should tie that in with our
Volcanology. Yeah.
architectural design
Designs. Yeah.
and designs. And now we can market that to our population in Florida.
In Florida.
Make small companies and say, hey, we live in that place. Nobody in the US or Canada or Europe should be telling us how to manage hurricanes and how to
Yeah.
survive hurricanes and how to build for
And,
hurricanes.
and
We should be
the
doing that.
plane that goes inside of the eye and monitor the storm comes from the
It
US.
comes from the US.
Why?
You know, and then instead of we making these predictions at the University of Colorado, this guy is doing that. We have three branches of the universities. We are depending on NOAA for information.
Yeah.
I get it. Some of these things are expensive, but we have enough
But
money. I
expense
think
is relative.
exactly.
You know.
We have. It gives us an opportunity to build efficiently and build smartly because what do you call it? Necessity is the mother of all inventions.
Should be, right?
So, but apparently that necessity is not causing us to invent anything. So my point is, like frankly speaking, Drago, like I said to you, hurricanes will be there before we're gonna. Like I don't want to have a conversation about, you know, putting enough tin stuff, getting candles, getting flour. I mean, if in this day and age we have to have that conversation for people, then
Maybe better. No, I shouldn't say
I,
that.
I'm frankly speaking though, but at this age,
No,
we
I was
should
good. Yeah.
we should not be. I mean, it is important, but I think we need to move past that, and that should be so much a part of our life that we should be to the next level, talking about how we can benefit from those things and having what I just told you about, like the University of West Indies, taking that intellectual knowledge, creating something that's Caribbean origin based on that need to survive, and transporting it to Florida and say, hey, we've been getting. I do that all the time. When I go to my work, these people tell me about storms, and I said them I grew up with Hurricane David and all these hurricanes, and I'm telling them about hurricanes. That means I have personal experience. I have personal experience of survival. When I make something out of that, I can come to Florida. Florida has hurricanes and say, hey, folks, you know what? We've been doing this in the Caribbean for a long time. This is where we survive. Dominica, we know how to build. We know how to manage. We know how to do that stuff. Now we can export that intellectual knowledge to another place.
Yeah.
But
We come full circle in this conversation where before we had the technology, we could look at the animals and understand what was coming.
Yep.
Because the animals were native and endemic to that environment.
Exactly.
Now we have the technology, we become the native and endemic species
endemic to that environment
that the rest can look at and say, okay, this is how they behave in Dominica.
That's what it is.
And therefore we can copy that and take it out.
Exactly.
And also, let us say in terms of cost, we cannot build a fortress where 200 miles per hour wind wouldn't touch us.
Yeah.
However, we can say we can design up to 150 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And if we do get a 175 or 160, we're going to get some damage. But guess what? We have some money put aside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anticipating that so we can recover and bounce back and reduce the impact. But we're just not thinking.
No. I think part of it is the culture of the inferiority complex.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I think a lot of times we think that we can't do things. We cannot.
Yeah.
I think we doubt ourselves too much. We say we can't and we can't do it. Drago, I've been in the US for 20-something years, managing companies, managing environmental division, responsible for 4 states in the US, right? Who I am today is not because I was in the US. The brains that I have on me and what I learned on my experience is not because I'm here. It's because of where I come from.
Where you come from. Yeah, no, it's true.
So if I had that ability and I have the ability to use it in this environment, why can't I use it in my home environment?
And why can't your home environment facilitating you being able to do that?
Exactly. Why don't they trust me in doing that?
Yeah.
So my point is there are lots of people with capabilities in the Caribbean and Dominica everywhere. We live in an environment, and that's what we do as living organisms. We adjust to the environment we live in, and we survive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't mean it's you can make it efficient. As a matter of fact, if you want to talk about efficiency, and I tell people all the time, because we've only talked about global warming and now there is all kind of cultural issues. That's why companies have ESGs and environmental and social governance. They talk about what we as Black people have gone through. And I had a conversation with my coworkers for one of the AIM groups. And I said, when you guys having that presentation, please don't talk like we are subservient or we are incapable. The company is talking about resilience. Let's tell them why Black people are the most resilient people. Because after being slaves, after being through all this hardship, we're still able to survive and be successful. That's resilience in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of mindset has to perpetuate through the culture and the region where we live in, that we don't have to sit by every time and wait for somebody to solve our own problems. We have colleges, we have institutions, we have our brains, we have capability. Things doesn't have to be expensive because being resilient really is using your environment, surviving in your environment, and using what you have to make something positive. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's basically what it is. So it's so when they sell us, hey, you got to get this from here. It's the same brain. And I come to the US and I'm managing some of these people. So I'm saying to myself, well, if we can be doing it here, why can't we use the same ideas and mentality in the
And
Caribbean like everybody else?
it's really a matter of inferiority. I'll give you my story. I came back to Dominica with my engineering degree in 1990, and it took me a long time to get a job as a young engineer. I was
Yeah,
really young, and everybody looked at me and you're really an engineer. This Canadian man saw my certificate and hired me immediately.
yeah,
That is one area where, but not only that, when I joined that company, he had a project manager from Canada running the project. About 4 months into me being joining the company, he and that project manager fell out, and the manager went back to Canada. And
yeah,
you know what he said to my young self, 23-year-old self? Anthony, I have watched you on this project. There's nobody I can bring to manage this project that's going to understand it better than you. I'm going to
yeah,
make you the project manager.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And as a young man, my very first job, this man hired me as the project manager on a major project. It was a project to build the Cabrit's cruise ship berth,
yeah,
and we expanded the deepwater harbor in Roseau.
yeah,
There is no Dominican that would have done that for a young engineer.
yeah,
Of seeing that, even if they see it, they would never have said,
yeah, yeah,
no, they're going to be score. And we see it now.
yeah,
We have hospitals, we have all these different things. Who do we hire as CEO? Who do we hire as
yeah. Foreigners.
foreigners?
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
have our Dominicans who are running bigger and broader enterprises
yeah. Out there.
everywhere else in the world.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah,
and so part of the problem then, Len, that we are discovering is not where we're talking hurricane and hurricane preparedness, but it's really a mindset.
yes, it is. That's the point. That's the
You know,
point. And that's why I keep stressing the fact that if you call me on your show to tell people to hold extra batteries and like during hurricane season, I mean, it's ridiculous.
it's ridiculous.
It's
Yeah,
and
it's
I'm
an
gonna,
insult to your training and your
yeah, it
experience
doesn't.
and everything. You know.
I could have
Yeah.
my, and I'm not saying that to belittle the point, but I'm just saying that we have to think outside the box. We have to think differently because I'm coming from a perspective where I grew up in hurricanes,
Hmm.
and I'm in an industrial world where I've seen what is the result. And there's something that I know within my company I'm not at liberty to discuss, but there are companies making millions of dollars from disaster relief and
Yes.
disaster response,
And disaster recovery.
disaster recovery. So the point, and like I've said before, a disaster is not a disaster if nobody's there. It only becomes a natural disaster because people are impacted. That's what
Yeah.
makes them natural disasters. They are natural phenomena, and like if hurricanes were to stop on this globe, we'll all be dead. We'll all be affected because they are necessary necessary system, just like volcanoes, just like earthquake. If you look in my background, you see that beautiful mountain Mon Diablo thing. That's what makes Dominica unique. But
Hmm.
it was built from fire and fury and destruction.
Yeah. Hmm.
But it's beautiful. So at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is to have a different mindset. I can't have the same conversation and telling people that hurricane season is coming, you need to board up your windows. We talked about the simple thing as hurricane shutters. If hurricane, you can design these things where they look really pretty. They give the house an aesthetics. You get the roofs that like the old roofs used to be, detached roof,
Hmm.
and you don't have to buy board every year trying to knock up a window. Hurricane come, you close it. That's what the old people did, and it worked fine. I
Yeah.
don't know. Somebody sold us and told us that we need to have these fancy windows, which is great, but put that addition out there.
Yeah. Put
How
it
can
where
we
you can get access to your shutters,
Exactly.
and you
Where
can
can you
shut
get
the window
access
and
to your
stuff.
shut and you can shut your windows?
Yeah.
So little things like that. But I think part of the problem is we in the mindset we don't like change, and sometimes we get comfortable with doing the bare minimum. And I always tell people being comfortable is the recipe for stagnation. You
And deteriorating.
Deterioration. You have to be uncomfortable to progress. You have to be uncomfortable to always want to find something new. Don't worry about failing the first time. And you mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to correct you because you said, the tourists came down and they were jumping in the waves, and you had to go save them. Well, here's what the deal is. if Orville and Wilbur Wright, who discovered the airplane, if they had crashed, all also we'd be taking sailboats. Probably that'd be good for the environment, right? But we're taking sailboats to go from point A to point B. The point is, sometimes accidents happen, but you don't go in a cave and sit back there. You figure out what went wrong, what can we fix, can we improve on it, can we make it better. Then you do those things. You might still fail, but then you go and you go back to the drawing board and you do the same process again and figure out until you get it right. And that is the difference between the folks in the industrial world developing new ideas from natural disasters, frankly speaking. Look at geothermal energy. People talking about geothermal energy. That's an energy source from volcanic resources. Somebody thought we can use that heat, and I guarantee it was a strange idea at first. But guess what? Now there are more and more companies trying to do that in the US, in France, in all these places. Is it dangerous? Of course it is. So what I'm saying is, let's have a different mindset, not one of
Limitation. Yeah.
limitations.
Mhm.
We have a brain to survive, and if parrots can survive and find themselves, we have a higher capacity than just to think of a hurricane as, I'm going to make sure I have water, I'm going to make sure I have battery, I'm going to make sure I have extra food. Think about the engineering, the things that you do way in advance.
The
That be,
insurance, the
it,
financing.
yes.
Yeah.
And if we are doing these things without hurricanes in mind, then we are failing in society. We're not learning. So whatever we get, I mean, it's going to happen. So even our banking system, our engineering system, our marketing system, our the way we distribute our financial system has to be in place with that one single deciding factor, which is hurricane season in our
Yeah.
existence. It
No,
has to.
what you're saying is real. Like for example, the British left us with bananas
Yeah,
because we want to supply bananas to English homes and whatever and whatever.
yeah,
And if they did not take away the market from us, we would still be growing bananas
yeah,
as our major crop.
yeah.
But bananas is one of the least suited crops
For hurricane.
for a hurricane area.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But
but it, it's a blessing in disguise that they took away the preferential market.
yeah, yeah. So I and you funny you bring that up because I had this conversation with somebody not too long ago. I think the banana industry started the destruction of the agricultural industry in Dominica. I think that's and I'll tell you why. Because you practice agriculture to make a living. Cocoa, mango, citrus, all these crops, they are seasonal. So if a farmer is going to plant, he has to have a mixture of crop that bears at different time of the year, so he have a
Mhm.
constant flow of cash yearly. If you cannot plant enough cocoa to store them in big vats or whatever the case may be to sell based on market, or have enough to sell to generate enough revenue for the entire year, you need
Carry
to
you
have
free of
carry
season.
through the year. You need to have something that creates a constant stream of revenue. What banana did, banana was able to give that to farmers. Every week you were cutting bananas. So bananas
Mhm.
give you a constant stream of income. It was not suited for the hurricane season. That's why they had wind ban and they had insurance mechanisms in place that when farmers' bananas get destroyed, they get compensated because now you have to provide them with a source of income.
And you
What
can
that
rebuild.
what that
Yeah.
what that did is a lot of farmers and there's a natural law. Anybody will take the path of least resistance. Water, human beings. What that did is because now you have a crop that's giving you money every week. I don't care about cocoa. I don't care this taking too long because it's seasonal. So I'm gonna plant and give attention to what generates revenue for me every week. And it worked for a while. The problem is all the other cash crops, we forgot about them.
Hmm.
And if you look prior to bananas, most of the old agricultural farmers did a strong mixed cropping with cocoa, with mango, with coffee. We had lime,
Coconuts,
biggest lime producer,
potato, limes. Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
But as I said, they seasonal. When you plant yam, you have to wait for how long. But bananas you get year round, and I think that had caused farmers to move away from this solid cash crop that at least could withstand hurricane. And by the time the banana industry died, most of our cocoa farms were abandoned. Coffee farms were non-existent, and most of the cash crops they were destroyed. So, and the other problem is these don't grow overnight. They take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and I think that's part of the issue with the
Yeah,
industry.
and also it's just the same. The colonizers left.
Yep.
but we continued to colonize ourselves.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so the colonizers introduced bananas because bananas was a novel,
Yep.
exotic fruit for them,
Yep. Yep.
and we just continue to do that. But we could
Yep.
have done sweet potatoes, we could have done dashing, we could have done. And when farmers did those things, the government was not able to deliver on the marketing that they
Yep.
promised.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
people got discouraged. I remember a little boy in Castle Roost, they had tell farmers to plant ginger.
Yep.
And by the time the ginger came for harvest, the markets that were expected they didn't materialize. And I can still see heaps of ginger
Yep. Yep.
all along the farms and roads just growing on themselves
Yep.
in the village. And farmers had one or two, three of those experiences
Yep.
and decided, let me just do bananas. At least every week I get my money.
And I think that's the issue. So I think now, Drago, what we have to focus on, and I've heard it over and over again, is agro processing, getting these raw materials, getting the value added to those raw materials from them cash crops. It adds shelf life and it adds a value to it, and either getting it on the local market. So how you increase consumption on your local market, how you increase production on your local market is by increasing consumption.
And
And
increase
for you,
value too. Hmm.
and so increase consumption, you have to increase value to it.
Hmm.
I think while we talk about weather and climate, most of the things, and that's what it says, a mindset. When you're doing stuff like that in the island, why aren't we tying in the food and nutrition? Because these are the people who can develop new recipes for mangoes. Think about the amount of recipes that they have in Trinidad for mangoes. You might mango chutney, mango pepper, all those things. What it does, it creates a need for more production. So if a farmer can sell 90% of his produce in processing here, that is consumed mostly here, then we solve half of our agricultural
Hmm.
problem.
That's
Then
what,
the rest, sorry, the rest is for export. But I think,
yeah.
like I said, we don't like we get stagnant. We don't think outside the box because traditionally what we have done, we plant raw materials, we plant and we're looking for a market for those raw materials. That's the least. That's the lowest point on the value chain of any product.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what you do, you have to add value to them. Why are we buying? So hear me out. I don't have cocoa bought and made in America. If you go to my cupboard right now, I have more cocoa sticks from Dominica.
Hmm. Me too.
That's all I drink. It's healthier. And with cocoa, you can make creams, you can make you make lotion, you make hair products, you make I mean a wide range of produce. For you to make this produce, you need to have production. So if you increase production, you increase the channels of production for the farmers, then the farmers can say, okay, I'll plant an acre of cocoa, I'll plant an acre of coffee. I need that mixed cropping because now I have sale for that. And in between that, we think about hurricane season. I heard them talking about having things like ginger and foods that stay in the ground, like the yams, the dashing, the tanya. But instead of selling the dashing, why don't we make dashing chips? Why don't
That's in cheese,
dashing chips
that's
is
in
the best
flour.
chips?
Hmm. Yeah.
Why don't we make dashing flour? Why don't
Hmm.
we find other materials that we can make
And
out of this
and we
produce?
have an example of that, Philip Nassif just
Yeah,
passed, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
He took coconuts and added value and made coconut products
Exactly.
to the extent that the company grew so much that he would buy every ounce of copper that he could get on the
Because he
local
needed it.
market and still have to
Import some more.
import
And
to be
if
able to
he's
do
in,
the production.
exactly. So if he's importing, and so Drago, like I said earlier, we have examples where we are capable. I remember my grandfather Johnson, God rest his soul, had shares from DCP. These
Yes, because
guys
he
get
was
an
a copper
extra check.
producer, no?
He was a copper producer.
Exactly.
Not one teacher, police, nurse, doctor today talk about having shares in anything in Dominica.
Hmm.
Not one of those folks. So then we have other revenue streams that can help us cover our insurance cost on our house for hurricane season. We can have other revenue streams, not just the little salary we get. Something else that gives us more money when we retire. We can talk about our shares in DCP, our shares in this product. We're not thinking outside of the box. As a matter of fact, I'm not even saying outside of the box because these are things we did
We
before.
did before.
Where
We need
did
to
we
go
go
back
wrong?
in the box then. We need to go back in the box
Well,
and pull out the notes and see what we did before.
yeah. So as much as we talk about hurricane preparedness and resilience, hurricane preparedness, like I said, is hurricane is part of our life. It's not something that happens from June to November. It's supposed to be in every aspect of our society, our hospitals, our schools, our we have to do things that are centered, and then we ask ourselves, how can we benefit financially from that intellectual advantage we have, that
Right.
experience, that survival know-how, that survival expertise. And as I said, I was born in 1979. From 79, I've been hearing about Hurricane David. These stories never go away. So Hurricane David, Hurricane Alan, Hurricane Iris, Hurricane Hugo,
Frederick
Hurricane. I
Hurricane.
mean, you
Yeah.
just Frederick, just name it. So it's part of our lives. And like I said, we have to have a new dispensation of how we look at these things, because I'm talking to you from some, like, as somebody who have grown up in that system and seen how the capitalist system operates, taking advantage of these opportunities. We sometimes think of our value in terms of our goods and services, but intellectual value is more important than any of those, because without the intellectual value, you don't know what to do with your resources on your country. You
Yeah.
don't know how to survive. You don't know how to properly manage those goods and services and to be competitive. So that is also important. And I'm saying, instead of every year looking for PT, I think we should start using our brains, our capability, our know-how to take advantage of this, the single most important event in our existence is hurricane season.
Hurricane season. That's the most certain thing.
Yep.
We're certain that we're going to get storm. It's certain that
Death
we're going to
taxes and
get,
hurricanes.
yeah. And we'll talk about not operating at the primary level,
Yeah.
where we grow dashing, we sell it to a huckster and it's gone.
Yeah.
Process it. It is
Yeah.
similar to human capital.
Yeah.
Instead of every young person that's born in Dominica looking to migrate,
Yeah.
so we are exporting our intellect.
We are.
We are
We are.
exporting our manpower.
Of
But
course.
instead of exporting the human being, which is the primary product,
Yeah.
we can use them in place
Yeah.
and get their intellectual production and
That's
export that. You know?
that's that the industrial world was developed by intellectual property. It was developed
Mhm.
by intellect. It was developed by engineers, designers, inventors. This is your mental capacity. So
And a lot of those came from what they call third world countries.
exactly, exactly. So when we don't see the value in what we have up here and utilizing it in the environment we live in, then that's when we fail. And like I said, man, the worst mistakes are the ones we don't learn from. And
Mhm.
I just hate to encourage, having a conversation about, making sure you have enough corned beef and making sure
Yeah,
it really gets to me, in a sense that we need to move. That should be so much part of us that we need to have the next conversation.
yeah, yeah. That, and that's why we have you every time as our disaster person. You realize we don't go to, somebody from the meteorological office or disaster preparedness or that kind of
Yeah,
thing. Because as I tell my listeners, is that I like to deal with contemporary
yeah,
topics
yeah,
and issues, but I like to bring it to you from a point of view that's different from what you're going to find
yeah,
just clicking your remote or surfing your phone or that kind of thing. And this conversation that we have right now is a very deep conversation
yeah,
that
yeah.
says that preparation for a hurricane is not something that happens in May
It's a way
and
of
June.
life.
It's supposed to be baked into your way of
It's a
life.
way of life. Everything in Dominica should be baked around.
To be
We
baked
should be
around the fact
on
that you
hurricane preparedness, and
and
then
and
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 then knowing
and
that we see how we capitalize from it.
and that's even more the case because, as you said, Len, most of the impact of hurricane is not the wind,
No.
it's water and
Yep.
it's landslide. And
Yep.
Dominica has that year round.
Yep. Yep.
You
So
know,
so
Dominica have rain events, catastrophic rain events, 12 months in the year.
yep. Yep. And so you an engineer. So you get back home and you can go to your communities. I grew up in Benz, and I can tell you certain areas that are disaster prone. I can walk around Dominica because of the experience I have, and identify areas that are at higher risk because of their topography, the drainage pattern. That's the big deal. Where your drainage patterns are. I could take a map, look at it, because I'm trained to do that stuff. You spend so much time looking at aerial maps and aerial surveys and identifying locations, drainage pattern system. You look at the gradient of the land, if there is seeping water on the ground, little things like that. I mean, a lot of things you can look at. Then you incorporate that into your, how we set up our communities. What is the planning? What is how do we plan our communities? There's a planning division, Drago. There's a perfect example. I went home a couple of years ago. My sister was building her house, in the community, and right next to the house there's a huge drain, and you turn and you look up and you see the mountain area up there. And as soon as I looked at it, I said to him, the area is nice, it's kind of swampy, but you gotta pay attention to that drain. Make sure you fill it in with some big boulders. What it will do, it will reduce the friction, but at the same time, you have to account for that drain out there. Because if you don't, it's going to erode your land, you're going to lose your house, and you're going to have issues. And then I ask, I don't know how they approve your planning for that without telling you have to be away from that drain. But things like that. So it make me realize that it's not that we are incapable. We have laws, we have rules, we have plans. We just don't follow them. And I hate to say, let's introduce new laws when we have not even tried the ones that are on the book. For example, we don't do EIAs. There is structures and construction going on. There's a hotel built on a swamp area where the environmental impact assessment, it has to factor in storms. It has to factor in tidal. It has to factor. We have been having earthquakes in Dominica for a period of time. It has to factor in seismic activity. It has to factor in volcanoes. Then in your planning, you can say, hey, this area, we have an active volcano complex in Roseau. What is the alternative to Roseau, if in case, God forbid, that the volcanoes out there erupt? Where else are we going to put the capital? Have we had 100-year plan to say, okay, we setting aside this portion of Dominica for future development, just in case a disaster happens in Roseau? We have trade winds every 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And what is the alternative? What if a volcano erupts? What do you have planned? Let me tell you something. You know what would make our generation proud? You know what would make our generation proud? Let's assume 150 years from now, Roseau got wiped out by a volcano. And just because we were forward thinking, we had set aside a piece of land in Wesley or some of the safer areas for future development. These people are going to sit back and like, man, our forefathers were thinking. That tells the intellect we have. But we don't do that. We like I said, as human beings, we think we are the most important thing in this planet. We're not. And the tree is important. The landform is important. The hurricanes are important for transfer of energy. The ocean currents are important. They become out of whack when we mess with the balance. When the balance messed up, the chemistry messed up, just like our bodies. When the chemistry messed up, we get out of whack. You have an El Nino, you have a La Nina, you have temperature increase. What you do is you accelerate some of those processes. Temperature increase causes more evaporation, higher pressure. You have a steeper pressure gradient between the low pressure system and the high pressure system. The laws of nature tells you if you have a steep gradient between anything, you're going to have instability. It's the law of nature. It happens in society, rich and poor. It happens with...
It's going to try to even it out. Yeah.
It's going to try to even it out. That's a natural law. So 20 years ago, as a 17-year-old at sixth form college, my last paper was, what are the consequences of a rising global temperatures on the planet Earth? In geography, in 1996, in Dominica State College, doing subject like that, talking about global warming, El Nino and El Nina. 20 years ago. I didn't learn that here. I learned that in Dominica, in this state college. So my point is, how am I using that information from the state college to make my environment in Dominica better, to make my people understand, to put systems in place so that we don't only survive, but we thrive. And the way we thrive is by overcoming those natural disasters. Sometimes they are too strong, we can't stay there. For example, volcanoes, we all know what happens. You look at Hawaii, beautiful island, but it's created by lava flows. And every now and then when it erupts, it burns building. You just have to move on and go on.
It becomes an inconvenience rather than a disaster.
It becomes an inconvenience, but you can't stop it. You look at California. I use it as an example. California and Port-au-Prince is no different. California is on a active seismic zone, but they have skyscrapers. They have all kind of buildings. They are comfortable. Look at Japan. Japan is on one of the most active seismic zones, the Ring of Fire. And Japan, as you know, is one of the most intellectually savvy country. They import everything. They import is high because They import everything. But you know what makes them powerful, what makes them strong? Their mind,
The
the
intellect. Yeah.
intellectual
Mhm.
capacity.
Mhm.
So they can build structures that have giant pendulums in there. So when the earthquakes happen, you feel the rock, but you don't feel the structure. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but I'm saying is they are able to survive within there. They build everything around the existence of earthquakes. That's another natural disaster. So we in Dominica, we in the Caribbean, have to use our intellectual property to survive. How can
Yep.
we take advantage of that? And then we can take that expertise from actually living in a real life lab. Take that expertise because we have over 80 years of tried and true measures of how we survive hurricanes, and take that and sell that to Florida, set up a company up there to build hurricane relief buildings and hurricane shelter. Why can't we do that from one point? So then we can take that economic activity and bring it back to the Caribbean. Why can't we have a hurricane relief company with a headquarters in Dominica or headquarters in Barbados or headquarters in somewhere, and we travel? I mean, it's a global, the climate crisis is not a localized issue. It's a global issue. So if there are issues that are affecting us for hurricanes for all these years, we should be able to export that intellectual knowledge for a price to some of these countries, to North America. Tell them the know-how, you know. So we have to think in that life,
Yeah.
Drago.
I like the way this conversation is. That it's 9:30, so 9:33. We're going to wrap up,
Yeah,
but I think what we achieved the objective of getting people to think.
yeah,
You know, yes, after thinking, we have to take action
yeah,
because thinking on its own is not enough. But at least we have to think and understand and create a framework within which we can take action.
yeah. Yes,
You know,
certainly, Drago. So I'm sorry, I didn't want to come across arrogant, but the point I'm
you
making
didn't
is
at all. I
the
don't know.
point I'm the point
At
the
point, you know, at all, at all.
the
That's
the
the
point
conversation we want to have.
yeah, the point I'm making is, we have a system that really decides our existence. Everything we do, our house structure, our roads, that's what affect them. So we live at the mercy of those disasters. What I have seen from my experience is and the reason why I'm drawing reference to places like California and so on is because they exist within hazardous area. It's just not volcanoes, but it's pretty hazardous. But they thrive. They build structures. They use their brain. And I'm saying we have to have a different approach. We can't be moving in this modern era with the same mindset of doing the bare minimum just to survive, and then we sit to see where we can get aid or
Aid,
assistance.
aid, aid is aid, aid. I hate to hear that so much.
You
Oh,
you
we're a
can be
small island. We need aid. Why
you
do we
can
need aid?
are you I don't care what you tell me and how you spin it. You can't be resilient if you're still begging during hurricane season.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense. These
at
two
all.
don't match.
Yeah.
Not at all. You
Why do
you
you
can't
need aid? You can negotiate,
you can negotiate.
but you shouldn't need aid. You
So
know.
so so I'm saying for all that stuff to really come to fruition, for us to be really resilient, we have to think outside the normal realm of what we have done for the past few years. We need to stop being lazy in our thoughts, believe in ourselves, believe in all of us. I know very Dominica right now have very talented, bright kids. And I think part of our social problems, why our young men go astray, is because they don't see value in themselves. They don't see
Hmm.
value in their brains and their ability and their contribution to society. Because if you see you are valuable in contribution to society, here we're talking about hurricane economics, and these young guys don't even think that that's how many top class engineers, carpenters that may have died on bikes in Dominic or selling drugs. You understand what I'm saying? I know I have a friend, and I always mention his name. He flies 737s for America for one of the aircraft carriers up there. He's a captain from Portsmouth, and he would have never gotten that dream if somebody didn't push him front and say, "Man, you have the ability and to get out." We shouldn't have to get out to realize
Should
our
not
full
have to get
potential.
out. Exactly.
There are opportunities out there. There are opportunities for engineers, geologists, fishermen, carpenters, masons, architects. There are opportunities for, as a matter of fact, we have probably one of the best aggregate for construction in Dominica, which is the volcanic rocks. It's been explored and exported, and we don't see the benefit as a country. And that's because we don't believe we are capable. We don't believe we are
We
important.
don't
We,
value
we,
what we have.
we don't
You
value
know, people.
but we don't value ourselves.
Hmm.
We don't value our minds. We don't value our intellect. We don't see the value in our intellectual capacity. So therefore, we don't believe we can. And if you don't believe you can, somebody else is always going to take advantage and do something for you. And I think there has to be a different conversation, Drago. There has to be a different mindset of how we do things so that we can stop being dependent. We can be truly resilient. And like I said, I can't be resilient in anything if I'm going to be asking my brother for a bread every day. If somebody has to give me something to feed myself, I'm not resilient. If I can't build my own house, I'm not resilient. If I don't have a bank account and I can't build wealth in my place, I'm not resilient. You can give me whatever you want, we're not resilient. And for people to be resilient, they have to be able to overcome the environment we live in and not just survive but thrive.
Yeah. And that on that, I'll leave it on that note because after Hurricane Maria, um, our governments went out there and told the world that Dominica cannot survive without your charity,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that made me very ashamed as a
I,
Dominican.
you know, so the sad part
Yeah,
about all this, do you notice after every disaster or every event, the IMF has a forecast for Dominica's economy to grow? After every event, there is a forecast that Dominica's economy, even if your economy has been destroyed 110%, the forecast says Dominica economy is going to grow. You know why they say that? Because there is an expectation of a lot of money coming through donations. There's an expectation of a lot of construction for rebuilding. There's an expectation of insurance money. So if you are making a financial and economic projection after a storm that there's going to be growth, that alone should tell you something.
and that's the way to look at it. And so, Len, what I'm getting from what our conversation is that we should stop looking at hurricanes as a pending doom
Yep,
and start looking at, well, this is what we have to deal with. How can we spin it into an advantage?
yep, yep,
How can we make it so that our people have a better way of life? We
yep.
use it
Use
to,
it.
to
Yep,
produce, yeah.
yep.
And so that I think is the perfect conversation about how you prepare for hurricane season. It might
I
not be
think
for
that's
this year, or we can start this year, but it should be a long-term plan that
eh,
says what can we do in 5 years, in 10 years time? How do we have a hurricane industry?
hurricane preparation in Dominica should be part of our existence. It's a constant factor.
Mhm.
We can't be only talking about hurricane preparedness June to November. That doesn't work. And I think if it becomes part of our society, part of our existence, then we will see not just the negative impacts, because no matter where you go, there's going to have negative impacts in anything. Even in
Mhm.
industrial development, there's negative impacts. But how can we take advantage of the consumption it creates, the needs it creates, the need for new structures, the need for maintenance, the need for intellectual capacity, the need for a new way of doing agriculture, the need for a new way of planning, the need for sticking to our laws. So I think if
Yeah,
we start thinking about it that way, and not just making hurricane preparedness a seasonal thing. Like I said, man, I see people do stuff Christmas. We have only 1 month for Christmas. Hurricane season is 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and I don't understand why, in this
it's
day
not
and age, are we
it's not
still?
an economic
It's
activity.
not an economic activity. I
Activity.
think once we get to that point, then we will truly be resilient. It has to be a mindset, Drago. It's not just the basic stuff. The basic stuff we should have mastered and conquered already. And if we're not, then it says more about us than anything else. So I think we have to get past that. We don't go get all this education, have all this philosophy and thought for the same stuff. We have to think outside the box. We have to think how we can advance, and we have to think how we can exist in what really controls our existence, and that's origins in my own opinion.
A good place to leave it. So, Len, I want to tell you thank you very much.
You're welcome, man.
We'll do this again next year.
Yeah, next.
Hopefully, we can
Will.
start to talk about implementation of some of these ideas, how we
Yep.
can get together and help to create that weather industry or that hurricane
It has
industry.
to be in a positive light, man.
It has to be moving forward and
Yeah.
marching forward and seeing growth
Yeah.
and seeing progress.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I know you have family in Dominica.
Yep.
So I hope if we do have a storm, that the impact is not too drastic
Yep.
on them and on all Dominicans as well.
Yep.
But start to think of how take the ideas that we have and how we can develop them. What can we do about insurances? Maybe then you and I can go down and start an inspection company that we can get
Probably
the
yeah,
insurance companies to pay us to do
we
certification
probably
for
do.
them,
We
you know,
probably can. You
because that's how it's done over here.
Yep.
The
Yep.
private sector does it for
Yep.
and provides the certification. But thank you again, and I wish you all the best.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Before you go, though,
Anytime.
one more thing I needed to mention. I know it's almost 10 o'clock.
That's fine.
29th today, the 29th of May, and we know in 1979, 29th of May was a pivotal time in Dominica,
Yeah. Yeah.
where Dominicans were not satisfied with the governance, and so they did something about it.
Yeah.
Do you have any particular thoughts? So just take a couple of minutes. Any particular thoughts about May 29th?
Well, so I've heard in the recent times how the perspective of the who is the villain and who is the victim has been swinging for the past few years, few years. And we saw one of the main guys from that era who became overseeing a country that has shifted its values, its religious values, its moral values, and so on. But I don't want to stress too much on that. And what I really want to talk about, when you talk about May 29th, is that gentleman, what's his name, Philip, the guy who died.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal view is nobody should get more attention than the people who lost their lives in
May 29th.
May 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Because we just came from Memorial Day in the US. And Memorial Day is a day to remember all those who have made the ultimate sacrifices for democracy, freedom. And what I find disturbing in all the conversation is the lack of attention that is paid to the gentlemen who have lost their lives in fighting for better governance in the country. And anytime people pay the ultimate price, that is with their blood and their life, I think they deserve the most respect. They deserve the reverence. And instead of May 29th being about who was there and who wasn't there and who was responsible and where they are now, let's pay attention to the people who have paid the ultimate sacrifice to make sure that Dominica at the time remain a democracy. Focus on these guys, because I think there were people who led them at the time, who led them to that fight. And there's no bigger sacrifice than the sacrifice of life. And my disappointment is they're not that significant in the May 29th conversation. And I think moving forward, instead of having that kind of conversation, I think we should have a day of laying reefs, moment of silence for Philip Timothy. Is it Philip Timothy
Philip
was his name?
Timothy, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Philip Timothy and anyone else who had lost their life during that tumultuous time. That is what is important to me, Drago. Because in all the conversation we talk about, it's how you sacrifice for others within a group to make our society better. Dominica is in a messed up place where it is, in terms of our governance. And I think not too many people are willing to do what Philip Timothy or go through what Philip Timothy have done for other people and for the country. So I don't even want to focus on those guys, but I really want to highlight that people lost their lives during that time, and that is what we should focus on, and that is what should be important.
All right. Okay. May 29th, 1979,
Yep.
the country gained political independence on November 3rd, 1978. So we're looking about 6 months after gaining independence.
Yep.
That unrest, as you call it, but there were so many strikes, and so my recollection of it is my feeling about it is Dominica was in a place where Dominicans were willing to take a stand for what they believe, whether they believe because they were misled by a leader, or whatever they believe the truth to be, they were willing to stand up for that truth. and we seem to have drifted away from that. And hopefully, we can reflect on that and go back there, and not let our truth be malleable because of who is on the wrong side of the truth. Truth should be the truth, and the truth should really be based on what we believe. Maybe more evidence might come up in 6 months' time that tells us that what we thought was the truth is not. But at the moment where we stand, at the moment where we see things, whatever we recognize as our truth, we should be willing to stand for that. And Dominica, I think, had that. Um, and we need to go back. We need to go back there. Yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that before I close. But again, I want to tell you thank you, Len, and I look forward to the next time that you're going to be on.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Good
Bye
night,
bye.
folks. Thanks for staying with us throughout the program. We were talking about preparing for the hurricane season, and basically what we're saying is you should be prepared. If you live in Dominica, you live in one of the islands, you should stay prepared. You should be born prepared. You should. It's not a matter of, oh, but it's hurricane season, especially in Dominica where we have floods and rushing water and landslides all the time because it rains all year. We need to think about it in such a way where we build our lives to be more disaster resistant, and and not only disaster resistant but also easier to bounce back when there is an event. So I want to thank my guest, Mr. Lennon Matthew, for being with us. Um, I want to say a special good evening and condolences to the family of Mr. Philip Nassif. He was one of those pioneers in terms of industry in Dominica post-colonial, one of the major employers. And from all reports, he was a very um, compassionate and considerate man um, that saw the need to share profits from his company with the people who helped him create that profit. He talked to everybody. I worked in that company for a few years, but he was no longer the owner. He had already sold it to Dominico, to Colgate Palmolive when I worked there. But the folks that I worked with worked for him, and they had great admiration for him. So to his family, our condolences. Uh, and Dominicans, as Len said, in 1979, where we had this turmoil, May 29th, 1979, we saw Dominica go through a political and social upheaval. And so, we want to harken back to that spirit. And so, folks, I want to say good night and tell you thank you for tuning in. And we will do this again next week, Wednesday, when we sit down and have another discussion on this week in interview. Good night, everyone.